ask you, speaking of your amazing love story with Nicole, you met at G'day Australia. Is that what it was called?
G'day LA.
G'day LA.
Yeah.
If you hadn't both been there that day, would your paths somewhere have inevitably crossed? Or maybe this incredible
probably.
life story wouldn't have happened?
No, I think it would.
It's been years since Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman became one of Hollywood's most adored couples. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Two beautiful stars, smiling on red carpets, holding hands at award shows, and showing the world what looked like pure love. But behind that polished image was a storm brewing for years. And now, Keith Urban has finally broken his silence, revealing why he really walked away from the woman the world thought was his, forever. It all started with that quiet tension fans began noticing, those subtle things people pick up on, even when celebrities try to hide it. Nicole's smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. Keith looked tired, and they were no longer seen together as often. At first, people assumed it was just busy schedules, like every Hollywood couple goes through. But insiders were saying something else. There was trouble, deep emotional trouble that no amount of PR smiles could hide. Keith, who's usually private, had always tried to keep their relationship out of the spotlight. He loved Nicole deeply, that was clear, but he also carried a lot of pain from his past. He had battled addiction, struggled with fame, and had moments of weakness he wasn't proud of. Nicole, on the other hand, was strong, elegant, and perfection-driven. Together, they looked like a fairy tale, but behind the scenes, they were two people trying to survive completely different emotional worlds. According to people close to them, Nicole wanted control. She liked things done her way, structured, organized, flawless. Keith, meanwhile, was more free-spirited. He thrived in chaos, creativity, and connection. That difference, which once drew them together, eventually started pushing them apart. One friend said, Nicole wanted everything to look perfect, but Keith wanted everything to feel real. And that right there was the beginning of their quiet downfall. For a long time, Keith tried to adjust. He adored Nicole, admired her strength, and wanted to make it work no matter what. But he often felt like he was living in her world, not theirs. Every time he tried to express himself, he felt unheard, like his emotions didn't fit the script she wanted. Then came that one night that changed everything. It was supposed to be a celebration, a private dinner for an award Nicole had just received. Cameras had followed them earlier that evening, and the couple looked perfect, smiling, holding hands. But as soon as the cameras were gone, their energy shifted. Witnesses later said the couple argued quietly in a corner before Keith left early. What fans didn't know was that this wasn't their first argument that week. It was their third. And this time, it was about something deeper. Trust. Keith had been opening up emotionally to someone from his inner circle, a longtime friend who'd been there during his recovery days. Nicole didn't like it. She felt Keith was keeping secrets, shutting her out. But from Keith's side, he felt Nicole didn't understand his pain, his fears, his insecurities, the parts of him that weren't glamorous. When he later spoke in an interview, his voice cracked a little when he said, "Sometimes love isn't about grand gestures. It's about feeling safe. And when that safety fades, even love can feel like a cage." That quote hit people hard. For years, everyone believed they were the dream couple. And now it was starting to make sense why Keith had been so distant lately. Friends said Nicole loved him, but she didn't always know how to show it. She came from her own emotional scars, her painful split from Tom Cruise, the years of scrutiny, and being labeled as cold or detached by Hollywood. She had built walls, and Keith spent years trying to climb them. But eventually, he got tired. And when someone as emotionally open as Keith gets tired, it's not anger that shows, it's silence. Fans started noticing his silence. He stopped posting photos with Nicole. At concerts, his usual dedication to her was gone. Instead, he began singing songs about heartbreak and freedom, leaving fans whispering that something was seriously wrong. Then came the shocking leak, a private moment captured on a fan's phone outside an event. Keith was seen stepping away from Nicole, visibly upset, while she tried to reach for him. He shook his head, muttered something under his breath, and left in a car alone. The video went viral in hours. Comments flooded social media. He looks done. She looks lost. That's not love anymore. Still, neither of them said anything. Until now. In his recent tell-all, Keith finally decided to open up. Not to bash Nicole, but to explain what really went wrong. His tone was calm, sad even. He admitted that fame, control, and silence had built a wall between them. But the most shocking thing he said was this: "I stayed too long trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix." That one sentence shattered the illusion of the perfect couple. Keith went on to say that he had been dealing with a lot internally. Not just his own struggles, but also the pressure of keeping Nicole happy, the pressure of Hollywood's expectations, and the loneliness that came with always being the one giving. He described moments when he'd come home after long tours, hoping for comfort, only to feel like a stranger in his own house. "You start feeling invisible," he said softly, "and that's when you realize love has turned into performance." People who've known them both said this wasn't about cheating or betrayal. It was emotional disconnection. Nicole, to her credit, did try to save the relationship. Sources close to her revealed that she suggested therapy, time apart, even living separately for a while to reset. But by then, Keith had already checked out emotionally. He wasn't angry anymore, just numb. And that numbness is what scared Nicole most. There's a saying that when someone stops arguing, it's because they've already said everything they needed to say in their heart. That's where Keith was. He started spending more time away, going on long drives, spending hours in the studio, reflecting. Those around him noticed he was calmer, more focused, but also heartbreakingly distant. He told one friend, "I love her, but I can't keep losing myself just to make her comfortable." That's when he quietly moved out for a while. Not a big announcement, no official separation at first, just distance. Nicole didn't want to believe it was over, but when he didn't come home for weeks, it hit her. The world didn't know yet, but their marriage had entered its final chapter. When the press finally got hold of it, Nicole stayed silent, but her eyes during interviews told a story words couldn't. Then, months later, Keith gave one final statement that sealed it all. During a radio interview, he said softly, "Sometimes love is the most beautiful lie we tell ourselves, but when it starts hurting more than it heals, you have to let it go." The internet went wild. Fans were split. Some blamed Nicole for being too controlling. Others said Keith wasn't patient enough. But what stood out the most was how much pain was in his voice, how he sounded like a man who loved deeply, but finally chose peace over performance. Behind the scenes, there was still hope that they might reconcile. They met privately a few times. No cameras, no red carpets. But people close to them said those meetings were full of tears, long silences, and realization that sometimes love stories don't end in forever. They end in lessons. Nicole was said to be devastated but composed. "She's not used to losing," said one insider. But with Keith, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about acceptance. Keith, meanwhile, has been focusing on healing, spending time alone, working on his music, and finding himself again. Those who've been around him say he's lighter now, like a weight has lifted. He doesn't speak with anger, only gratitude. "She'll always be a part of my heart," he said in one of his final statements. But sometimes the best way to love someone is to let them go. That quote left fans emotional. Because it wasn't bitter, it was closure. And maybe that's what makes this whole story so powerful. It's not about drama, betrayal, or scandal. It's about two people who genuinely tried, who loved, who fought for years to make something work, until it broke quietly. Not with shouting, but with silence. Nicole has since been seen focusing on her career, working on new projects and spending time with her daughters. She hasn't directly responded to Keith's words, but her public appearances show a woman still composed, still strong, but perhaps more human than ever. In the end, Keith Urban didn't leave Nicole out of hate. He left out of heartbreak, out of exhaustion, out of that deep understanding that sometimes even love, when it becomes heavy, has to be released. And the saddest part? They didn't stop loving each other. They just stopped recognizing what their love had turned into. Because sometimes it's not the lack of love that ends a relationship, it's the loss of peace. As fans continue to react, the world is realizing that what Keith said wasn't just about him and Nicole. It's something many people can relate to. The feeling of holding on too long, of fighting for someone while losing yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's why this story has touched so many hearts. Because Keith Urban's confession wasn't just a breakup story, it was a reminder that even in the world of glitz and glamour, real pain, real heartbreak, and real lessons exist. And for Keith and Nicole, this may not be the end of love, just the end of their version of it. Because sometimes love doesn't need a happy ending to be real. It just needs to have been true while it lasted. It just needs to have been true while it lasted.